When we look around the world, we find that many countries are affected by this coronavirus. And no one knows when it is going to end. And it is not just countries that are affected, but many individuals as well, in fact millions. There is a loss of freedom, there is financial loss, and there is also personal loss. And I suppose many of us will also experience personal loss, loss of friends and family, dear ones, through this coronavirus. This situation is extremely difficult to understand. In fact, who can really understand it? I'd like us to turn, in the light of this, to Job chapter 1. And in Job chapter 1, we find that Job is experiencing loss. He experiences loss of his animals, which was the property of the day, his sheep, his oxen, his camels. He experienced loss of his servants, they were killed. But certainly, what was the hardest loss was the loss of his children. They were meeting together, celebrating together, and then the building that they were meeting in collapsed. They were all killed. How does Job react to this situation? How does he react to these sad events? Well, when we look at Job chapter 1, we find that Job is sad, upset, he mourns, he shaves his head, he tears his clothes, which was the sign of mourning in that day. But then he also prays. He says, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." I'd like us very briefly to consider this prayer. Let's take the first phrase. This is easy to understand. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I depart. It doesn't take much effort to think of those occasions and to remind ourselves that when we are babies, we came out, the doctor, the midwife or the nurse, they held us up, and we did not even have clothes to wear. We had no possessions at all. And of course, when we leave, when we depart from this world, it does not matter how much property we have, how many houses or how much land or how much money in the bank. We are not able to take any of this with us. So that phrase, naked I came from my mother's womb and naked I leave, is very easy to understand. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Well, that again is not so difficult to understand. That Job understands that there is God and that everything he has received and everything that is taken from him is from God's will. God gave it to him, and God has every right to take these things from him as well. But if we just leave it at that, it doesn't seem to be that helpful, because this God who gives and this God who takes away, he does not have to be a good God. He could be a horrible God, a cruel God who enjoys just giving something and then taking it away and seeing our reaction, seeing how distressed and upset we are. But that isn't the God that Job believes in. He understands that he worships the Lord, that there is a relationship between him and God, and that this God, this Lord, is a good God. And if God is good, then his purposes also are good, because he doesn't act then in a random or haphazard way. he acts with good intent, with good purposes. Job, of course, cannot understand what God is doing. He cannot understand why he's experienced this loss, why he's experienced financial loss, why has he experienced the loss of his servants, and why, oh why, has he experienced the loss of his children. He cannot understand all that, but he trusts in the Lord. He understands that the Lord is good and his purposes are good, even if he can make no sense of it whatsoever. And that's why he says, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." It is a cry out to the Lord of worship, recognizing his failure to understand things, but believing that God, the Lord, is good and has good purposes, even though he can make no sense of it at all. Now, we in this situation may find it very hard, in fact impossible, to understand why all this is happening. Why is there such loss to individuals? And why may you or I in the coming days may lose loved ones, friends or family? Why do these things happen? We don't understand. But when we're men and women of faith, when we're boys and girls of faith, we can say, "Blessed is the name of the Lord."